You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
Here we go. Leafs Morning Take, Wednesday, February 12th. Zack Phillips alongside the man, the myth, the legend, Jay Rosehill. Coming back from a couple days off here, Rosie, on the show. What the hell's going on around here? We got Vacation Vic. What was this guy on, like a month-long vacation, second, third of the year? Nick, nowhere to be found. Monday morning, I tune in. I'm looking for the boys to be on. I'm looking for the boys to be talking about what happened on the weekend, Vancouver, the Western road trip, and no show. I'm doing 1 a.m. shows on the Western road trip out there. I tune in. The boys are gone. What's happened?
I'm telling you, man, it's a softer generation, and they just can't handle the grind of a season, I guess. Just no shows. I was here with bells on, ready to rock, looking around, wondering where everyone is. No dice. I don't know, man. It's you just can't teach that kind of stuff, grinding through a season with some people, I guess.
You got to battle. It's an 82-game schedule. The Leafs grinding their way through it there. They do lose on Saturday night to the Canucks. That's not really what we're focused here on. We did the After Dark show. We got that out of the way. At this point, it's all four nations. Dig in some of that here today on today's Leafs Morning Take. Presentation of Bet365. And if you haven't already, make sure to head on over to Bet365. Open an account today and bet on a huge range of markets, whatever the moment's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION, NATION, all caps. Rosie, I'm doing the sheet with Jeff Merrick, and, today on the show, we have Zach Hyman. We got to talk to him yesterday and record that. So play that later on the sheet at 3 p.m. Eastern time. But one of the things of note was Hyman was not on vacation. This guy was sitting in an office in Brantford. How often was it that guys wouldn't go away when you were playing, when you had some breaks like this, All-Star, Olympics, whatever it was, and would just go back home? Were you one of those guys, or were you heading down to the sun?
No, like I had the 2010 Olympic break and the All-Star breaks and whatnot. I would try to get away. I wouldn't go and leave the country usually. Just, I don't know. I just didn't want to be that guy that got caught and something happened or whatever. But I'd do Palm Springs. I did Phoenix. I'd go away. When I was younger, I'd go home for Christmas, even if it was just a couple of days. You got your Jones and be back home a little bit. But, lots of guys, the thing to do is go down to the Bahamas and jump on a PJ and go to Atlantis. I don't know if the guys do that anymore. I wasn't quite jumping on the PJs back then, blowing the whole check, but try to get away, get a breather, something simple. A quick direct flight was kind of my deal. But honestly, the guys from Sweden and stuff might shoot around or might hang around. Everyone's kind of different. You do what you think you need to do based on your personality and how you feel the season is going for you. And if you're like Vic or Nick, you just punch the clock and you're never seen again, and you're gone for an extended amount of time without really telling anybody.
I have no idea when these guys are coming back. It could be like another couple of weeks for all we know. And I always wondered about that. Like, I've gone away during periods of time where it's like Christmas or whatever, and you got to come back for school. Or when I was playing minor hockey, you get a little break over the holiday period there where you're not missing any games. So jet off with the family, but then you're like trying to wheel back and you get some bad weather or whatever. Like, I don't know what it's like where you're at right now, Rosie. I'm constantly getting on my phone, like, bad weather warnings coming up because we're supposed to get a crazy snowfall. Like, I play this indoor recreational volleyball and it's 20 minutes away. This is how soft we are. It's 20 minutes away. There's concerns that tonight's game could be canceled. It's indoor volleyball 20 minutes away.
Is it going to dump or is it just cold or what's the deal?
No, it's supposed to dump. It's supposed to get a little bit nuts, but like,
yeah,
we're built for this. Like, we're supposed to be.
Lately, I don't know. I just feel like the winters used to be harsh the whole time. Maybe I was just a kid, but they never cancel school. I almost barely remember a snow day. You'd travel through anything, and they were crappier cars with worse technology. So I don't know. People are definitely getting soft, but it is chilly out there. I don't know. If you don't have to leave, don't bother. When I'm at work, I'm firefighting. Sometimes I just want people to go home and stay home and not move a muscle because when you get mass groups of people moving around, things hit the fan in a hurry in that type of weather. So I guess I see both sides of it.
Yeah, I mean, my high school was a commuter school, so it was like much more common that things would get shut down. But there was people going in from like 45 minutes to an hour away that were having to get in there. There's buses, like that was the main way to get to school. So it made like a little bit more sense that they would try to keep people at home on some of those days. But
Well, it
yeah,
reminds me
definitely.
though, when I was playing midget trip, we were going to the Air Canada Cup, which is like the national championship of midget hockey in Canada. We had to do a regional qualifier, and it was in Yellowknife, Northwest Territories. And one of the kids came in on a skidoo from I don't know how many miles away, and I'm just like, look at this guy. Like, he wants to be here. He's tough as nails. You bundle up, you get the job done, you show up and you play. So after that, any excuse that people didn't have to get places, I was like, no, I've already seen it with this 16-year-old kid going across the tundra on a skidoo. And I was impressed by that guy. He made it. And unfortunately, they didn't get the W against us. But maybe the year after, buddy. But showed some toughness on that kid.
Well, I mean, that's some commitment, and hopefully people will have commitment on Saturday night. As I see there, we've got a super chat in the chat there right now, and our super chat charity partner this season is Sick Kids. Want to make sure that your question or comment gets on the show. Hit us with this up with the super chat. Proceeds from our super chat will go to Sick Kids, ranked the #1 research intensive children's hospital in Canada and third in the world. KPG Rosie says, who will be at Greta Bar Saturday night, US versus Canada. Well, good opportunity to get two birds stoned at once, if you know about that at all. The first, we will be heading over on Saturday night, February 15th. Presented by Fountain Tire, the Leafs Nation will be hosting a watch party at Greta Bar on King Street West as Canada and the United States duke it out at the Four Nations. We got tickets, giveaways, signed memorabilia, trivia, and t-shirt tosses happening all night long. Join myself and Nick Alberga for this 19 plus event as we cheer on Team Canada. Entry is free with a reservation. Doors open at 6 p.m. Puck drop slated for 8 p.m. Grab your free ticket now at nationgear.ca. Nick and myself will be over there. Are you excited at all right now, Rosie, for the Four Nations? Like, that's kind of been a big conversation that's going on, is like, I wasn't really, I tried to get into it and then I kind of wasn't. And then starting yesterday a little bit, I'm seeing like who's the starting goalie, what are the lineups, who's playing on the power plays. I'm seeing all that kind of stuff start to go together. And it's like, okay, I'm building up some excitement here myself. And then rolling into this morning, I'm looking at, betting on the game as we do. And it's like, all right, I can feel it a little bit. Like, I want to get this thing going. I'm excited for the tournament to start.
Yeah, I'm the same. Like I was kind of ho hum about it. I wanted it to be good. I wasn't. I guess I didn't. I'm still unsure of what it's going to look like. Right. I'm curious. You could say I'm curious. But now, like you, as the days here, where am I going to watch it? Who's going to be there? Again, I opened my Bet365 app. We're talking about our betting segment at the end. All of a sudden, it's like, geez, look at these numbers. Who do you think is going to stand out? And what's Sweden going to look like? Are they going to surprise some people? And who's going to be the star of the tournament? Who's going to be the big boy? I can imagine these guys, they don't get to the level they're at by not being competitive, by not having egos. You're wearing your country's crest. There's going to be a lot of eyeballs on this thing. These guys are on second lines and third lines and second units, and I don't think they've ever felt that in their entire lives. So there might be a little bit of, oh, you know what? If they think I'm kind of a third-rate guy, like it's interesting to see where these guys' heads are going to be at. I don't think it's going to be like an all-star game where they're going through the motions. I really don't. And like you said, as it creeps up to game day, which we are at now, I am more excited than I have been for sure. So I'm think it's going to be good things. I think it's going to be maybe better than the naysayers think it's going to be. And I certainly hope it is anyways, but I've got this feeling it's going to be wow. It's going to be wow hockey all over the place. How could it not be when you look at the names on these bloody rosters?
I think also that what you're saying with the names on the rosters, there are players in here who are incapable of not bringing intensity, which will just elevate everyone else's overall level of play. Like Matthew Kachuk plays at one level. It doesn't matter what it is. Like, yeah, okay, in the All-Star game, he's going to turn it down a little bit, but that's because you have to. Like, you physically have to. If he plays like Matthew Kachuk in the All-Star game, he's going to stick out like a sore thumb. At a tournament like this, where you've got the US crest on your jersey, the Canadian flag on your jersey, whatever it is, you're going to start to feel it a little bit. And then you go into the corner and Matthew Tkachuk absolutely plasters you against the glass. All of a sudden it turns up a little bit, and I think it'll kind of ripple throughout. I feel like we're just gonna wait for one play, one hit, whatever it may be, and then that'll kind of skyrocket the whole thing. Like if Victor Hedman steps into like Brandon Hagel tonight coming across the line, and you're like, wow, that's two Tampa Bay players going toe to toe there, kind of in a physical battle. I feel like everyone else on Canada goes, oh shit, like if he didn't care, I mean, why should we? Like now we got to go. Now everything turns up and the intensity gets there. I don't necessarily know that it's like fighting and all that kind of stuff and gets to that degree, but I feel like there's going to be intensity and an actual like level of competition that we're maybe not anticipating or not thinking would be there yet.
Yeah, I would agree. And like Matthew Tkachuk is who you led with there, and I think that's the perfect guy who would lead with that type of mentality out there. Like he doesn't give a rip, man. I could easily see him going up, stirring it up, being heavy on every guy, extra little shot, and setting the tone. And then I just think that's like a foregone conclusion. That guy, that's just what he is, and that's who he is, and that's who he loves playing. That's how he's effective. And then my thought goes to, well, who do we have on Canada to give some pushback? Who would you think would stand up on Team Canada's roster to be that guy to set the tone or match the tone or bring the intensity?
McKinnon, Hagel, I think would be in there as well.
Mm.
Those are probably like the leading candidates.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
don't think
like,
anyone does it as good as Tkachuk, but
no,
if I don't know if it goes down. It's funny
Doughty.
because no one's ever seen this tournament. No one knows what it's going to be like. No one can predict how these guys are going to approach it. And to be honest, they don't even know. They haven't been out there. They're not sure what this is going to feel like. It's never been done before in this format, and it's odd. So I think that people will be surprised by the level of intensity, and I hope that Team Canada is constructed in a sense that they can match that if Tkachuk starts acting the way he does, and that reverberates through Team USA, and they start playing the tournament that way, and they get an identity as being like. I love that style of hockey. I don't think it's a secret from me. I think that is contagious, that kind of hockey. I think that it puts other teams on their heels. I think that it gives you the momentum all the time. It gives you that ego. It gives you that swagger. It gives you, the keys to the car the whole game. And I really, truly believe, you're looking at that Saturday night game, especially, that Tkachuk's going to lead with that. And I just hope that Canada has the roster, because obviously I'm cheering for them to reciprocate.
Okay, I'm looking at the Canadian roster here now, Rosie. McKinnon is obviously a guy that I threw out there because I think he just plays it with intensity. Like maybe not the Kachuk level stuff, but plays with intensity.
Oh, he'll
Here's
play
some
hard.
names that I think, yeah, play hard. Here's some names that I think could fit into what you're talking about, though. Brad Marchand, who
Mhm.
especially at this point in his career is going to have to maybe find other ways to impact the game than what he traditionally did. Brandon Hagel, Anthony Cirelli, Travis Konechny.
Ooh,
That's your fourth line.
dude, that's
uh,
that's heavy. I
yeah,
love Konechny. Like,
I do too.
don't. It's so hard to find a guy who's skilled but also knows that game within the game and runs the most. So many guys don't say a word to anybody else. They turn their back. Oh, as soon as the whistle goes, they have no amount of that aggressiveness to that side of the game. You get a
Yeah.
Marchand and a Konechny and these kind of guys, they love that shit. They look for it. And like you said, Marchand's used to, like, he has to be the first PP guy. He has to score that overtime goal. He's got to do everything. He doesn't anymore. And he's getting a little bit, longer in the tooth. You slow down a little bit at that age. And I think that he could easily rely on that kind of thing and match to Chuck if he wants to play that game, get in everyone's face, make that greasy hit, run his mouth, call on their bench. Like, I'm looking for that stuff. And maybe I'm out to lunch and they're not interested in doing that and no one's risking getting hurt. But I'm sorry, you get all these egos and all this talent and all this, all these studs in one building. And yes, no, they're not all on the first line, first unit, position, which they're used to being. They've never been, oh, well, how many guys are ahead of me? Like, if you're fourth on that team, you're one of the greatest in the world, but you're still fourth on that team. I think that those guys are gonna kind of feel that and say, well, maybe I want to be first on this team. Maybe if they shake things up, I want to get up to the first line. And we'll see these guys playing with an intensity level that people didn't expect. And those are great. Like Konechny's and the Marchands, those are the perfect guys that could respond to that type of play. And I really hope they do. I hope that everyone's shocked at how much this means to these guys.
Sam Bennett also thrown out there.
Mm.
As a guy who could just who would have been like a absolute menace who could
You
create
rattle off
some
those
issues. But
names, and the team looks heavy as hell all of a sudden,
I
right? And
know,
then you complement it with the top six. It's disgusting, man. I'm as
yeah.
excited as I've been right now for this tournament, and I'm glad it's game day.
I know it's one of those things where it's like I feel like there's also so much pride with representing your country, and we've heard time and time again where it's like McDavid was pissed off that they didn't get to play for Canada in the Olympics. He's not had that opportunity. Like the last time these guys have done it is World Championships or World Juniors for a lot of guys, and I mean no disrespect to the World Championships, but I think we all know what those are. It's just an opportunity to kind of go travel, hang out, and play a little bit of fun hockey at the end of the season that not everyone's
Yes.
really paying attention to. You
Yeah.
finish 10th or you win the tournament, it doesn't really change anyone's perspective of the country and the state of hockey there. So it's not like it's that big of a deal. This is different. And yeah, we don't know. We haven't seen it before, but some guys like that, McDavid, McKinnon, Marner, who hasn't had that experience and going into these is like, hey, we didn't haven't got to play for Team Canada. And by the way, like another underrated element of all of this that I think people have kind of pushed to the side and might increase intensity is the Olympics are around the corner. Like we're gonna get to go back to the Olympics. I think it's next year, right? What year are we in?
Yeah, it
2025. So yeah,
just
2026.
creeps
This
right
is a
up.
tryout.
Totally.
Like if a guy like Konechny comes in here and is a beast, Team Canada is going to have a hard time saying no to him next year. He's a guy who's on the fourth line, maybe on your bubble or whatever you want to call it. Maybe it changes it going into the next one. Or Seth Jarvis, who's on a tryout. Like some of this actually matters for when you get to that Olympic stuff. So it's a platform for them to showcase things. You go ahead, Rosie.
Well, think about when you're looking at a guy's career. Look at Mario or a Niedermeyer or Gretzky or like pick anybody when you're like 10 years removed, 20 years, 30 years removed, doesn't really matter. When you're talking about a guy's career and the legacy that he left, his play on the international stage is right there beside everything he did in the NHL, which is kind of crazy because you only get little sniffs at it and little handfuls of experience, like a week at a time here and there, or an Olympic break. It's not a lot, but when people talk about you, they hold that as high a regard as anything else. And it's always like, did this in the Olympics, did this in the World Juniors, did this in the blah blah blah, and rattles that stuff off.
Mm.
And if this is something they're going to do all the time, it's going to be part of that. And these guys, make no mistake, they have egos. They care what their legacy is. They care what people say about them. They care what kind of mark they left on the game. And if they say, yeah, he won 2 Stanley Cups in his 17-year career, he won a Hart Trophy, but never really did anything on the international stage. Don't really picture him in that uniform. Blah blah. That's a bit of a knock. And you're talking about Hall of Fame. You're talking about where you rank all time. This is what gets packaged up when people are talking about that kind of stuff. And these guys would never admit that. They'd never talk openly about that. But trying to be the best at your craft is what gets these guys to the level that they're all at. If you're absolutely out of your mind if you think these guys are at that level of competing and playing their game, and they're not motivated by those types of things. They want to be the best. They want to be remembered. And here's a thing where like you said, a lot of these guys haven't had the opportunity to do it on a stage like this. And again, there's another reason why there could be extra motivation. I know a lot of people are kind of questioning, what's this going to be like? Is it going to be shinny all-star game, or is it going to be more intense? And the more I talk and think about it, the more I'm like, there's no way this isn't going to be pretty goddamn intense hockey with all these players.
We're gonna walk away from tonight's game just so disappointed watching like
Imagine.
pond hockey for 60 minutes after we did this show. I know I'm in
Maybe.
this I'm in the same boat as you, Rosie. Honestly, I keep thinking about it and I'm like, I could give less of a fuck if you lose the All-Star game or you go there and like whatever, you lost the 3-on-3. Like This is Canada, US, 5-on-5, best on best, Canada, Sweden. Like it matters a bit more than that. KPG here asking as we get into some of the roster construction and specifically about Leafs. I wanted to ask you about Rosie. KPG with the super chat here. Is McDavid requesting Marner a signal to the Leafs? I'm assuming this is KPG implying here that it's him wanting to be a Leaf, McDavid wanting to be a Leaf in the future because he requested Marner. I didn't even know that he requested Marner, so I have no idea if this is true or not.
I didn't either. I was gonna say, is that real news or is that just some stuff, some rumors on the Twitter machine? I don't know. If he said, hey, because John Cooper has switched the lines up here
Yeah.
recently, and he's gone with Binnington, and people kind of thought it might be Aiden Hill. It if McDavid said, I want to play with Marner, of all those guys on the roster, that's kind of unique. That's kind of special. That shows that he thinks that he would have chemistry with this guy, and he appreciates and respects the way he plays and thinks he would have chemistry with the guy. But I don't want to go too far down that hole because I've never seen that. I didn't know that. I don't know if KPG is just pulling that out of his hat or what, but certainly if that were the case, people in Leafs Nation would love to make a big deal about it, and people's in Oil Nation would love to roll their eyes at it. So we'll see. Long time down the road before we start talking about that. Really.
Yeah, we open up Four Nations conversations by just throwing jabs at Oilers fans here this morning on the
Good.
show.
Good.
I want to ask you a little bit though, specifically about some of these Leafs and Four Nations before we move off of this and back to some more Leafs specific stuff before we close out the show today. It's one thing I was thinking going into the tournament, and I heard you guys talk about it. I mean, I kind of threw it around in our chat a little bit, and I've talked to Nick about it. Is like, is there upside for any of these guys, or is it only downside? I mean, kind of half jokingly, half serious. The one thing I threw out there is like, if Matthews has a mediocre game and doesn't score, and the U.S. wins 2-1, or they lose a game to somebody here in round robin, finals, whatever, he's going to face criticism of can't get it done in the big game, typical Leaf, whatever. And it probably goes for all three of them. And that's something that we would expect just because of the market, just because of how other fan bases feel about the Toronto market as well. Is there upside to you? And I'll put it this way, because the more I started to think about this, I feel like for guys like Matthews and Marner, there is a little bit. I don't think it affects things for Willie because in Toronto and I think on the international stage, he has the same mindset, right? Like I think he's this guy who just is like, block out the outside world. I'm William Nylander. I'm going to play like William Nylander. And that's the way he goes about his business. And he's kind of a rock star in the NHL. He's going to be a rock star at the international stage. It doesn't matter. So I don't think that there's any change. I look at it with a guy like Matthews or Marner, and you're seeing them have to play different roles, maybe a different line. Marner's on the second power play unit. He may not get a chance to jump up there and be a guy who's going to take over on that first unit and be the guy leading everything. So now he's into a secondary position. He's playing with McDavid on that line there, as KPG alluded to. But he's not the focal point. In Toronto, it's Marner, it's Matthews, Nylander, Tavares. When you get to the international stage, guess what? There's three guys on his team automatically ahead of him, just in forwards alone. McKinnon, McDavid, Crosby. Look down to the defense, Cale Makar. Like there are other names who are more important than him here. Do you think there's an opportunity for guys like Matthews and Marner to kind of walk away from this international tournament with some experience, learning from people around them, and getting to play at these high levels without all the pressure in the world being on them to take back some of those lessons and opportunities and experiences to the Maple Leafs and kind of learn what it's like to be in those situations and have some of that pressure alleviated while playing at the highest level?
Well, I think anybody that does well in this tournament, it's going to bump their stock up, and yeah, the Leafs have more people talking about them than other players on the same team. So if it doesn't go well, there'll be more of a buzz about it. That's just the nature of playing in Toronto. We've talked about on the show a million times. I think that Willie, if he doesn't have a standout tournament, I think that it's just because he's on Team Sweden, there's not going to be as much buzz about it. People are like, oh, well, he wasn't on as good of a team. Even though I think Sweden could win this tournament. Some relatively likely, and he could be the star of the show. He's got that capability. But like you said, if these guys are in roles they're not used to, maybe they get a chip on their shoulder. Maybe they want to be the star of the show. Like whoever scores that overtime goal, whoever has 2-2 in one of the games, whoever has the highlight reel bury, whoever ties the game up late. Any of these guys are capable of it. Whoever does that is gonna be the one that's talked about and be the one on the highlight clip. And when they're trying to promote this thing next year, it's going to be that stuff. And everyone wants to be that guy. So there's motivation. It goes back to what I said to start is they all want to be that guy. They've been that guy their whole year or their whole lives. They've put in the work and done all those things. But, you know, do they have more to lose than they have to gain? Not really. I think that everyone has the same to gain. You're talking about these players are all ridiculously good, and they've all been the stars of the show before. Whoever steps up at the big moment is going to be the guy that gains that we're talking about. That has the highlight reel clip that's played over and over and uses it in promo clips next season and everything else like that. If Matthews doesn't explode, there's going to be a bit of a murmur in Leafs Nation. Like, man, I thought he's supposed to be one of the best in the world. Yeah, but again, that's just playing in Toronto. That's the market. The people that follow that team are going to talk about this tournament. So I don't think anything changes for those three individuals that happen to be on the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, I just get this feeling, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe it won't go this way, but it's like if those two guys go there, Matthews and Marner specifically, that I look at, and I'm like, if they go there and they have good tournaments, and they don't feel like the pressure's on them to be the guy to do things, like look down that lineup. We just talked about the fourth line for Canada that's got like Travis Konechny on it. Well, I mean, you look at their lines in Toronto. It's a little bit different when Ryan Reeves is your fourth line right winger. No disrespect to Reeves, but you go into a playoff series and that's the guy that you're looking at down there. And it's like, okay, well, that guy's not going to score goals. I have to. Well, it's a little bit different, on this international stage. You get some help elsewhere and other people can pitch in and help out. And if they have a good tournament, I feel like them going in here, having pressure taken off could make them walk away from this with this idea that like, I can perform, I can do it at the biggest stage, and it's not all like it'll be okay. Like I don't have to carry the weight of the world on me. And I know some of that's a little bit of a false confidence because you do get more support at the international stage than you do on your NHL team. But I feel like it could just alleviate things. I don't know. I mean, I could be proven wrong, but that's kind of the feeling I'm getting going into this tournament right now.
I'm curious to see how Austin Matthews looks in particular. He's got, all the pieces around him, nothing but talent, which he's played with Marner, Nylander, and Tavares, guys that can get him the puck. But, we're talking about the intensity level. And personally, I don't think Austin has played, especially recently, with a ton of intensity. There's been lots of times, and I've almost got to the point where I've been critical of him, publicly about, his effort level. And like he watches the puck a fair bit when he could easily, like McKinnon would go track that down with speed and effort. I don't know if something's wrong with Austin, and I'm not trying to dog him. I'm just saying his intensity level has kind of been ho-hum, and he's kind of a player anyway where he doesn't go end to end and dangle everyone and he's not really seen, and then all of a sudden he steps into a spot where the puck goes and bang, it's in the back of the net, and everyone was like, what the hell was that? He's a shooter, right? And I'm interested to see on this roster with these people around him, depending on what the intensity level is like, I'm interested to see what his intensity level is, what his effort level is, what his grind mentality even is, if it's there, or is he going to pick his spots and wait for his opportunities. I'm interested to see what Austin Matthews looks like, as I've kind of been paying attention to him a little bit extra down the stretch there on that road trip. And again, I'm just interested to see what he looks like.
Okay, let's get off the Four Nations here, but we'll do it with a really stupid take it or leave it that I've put together for you here. We'll make it quick. We'll do some rapid fire ones. I've only got 4 for you, but let's do our take it or leave it. I was putting these together last night. I'm like, man, Rosie's this is gonna be dumb, but it'll be good. So let's start with this one. as we're getting off Four Nations stuff and we're getting ready for this tournament to start here. First one, Mitch Marner will take reps in game on the first power play unit at some point. I'm not talking about a change happens and Sam Reinhart comes off and Marner ends up out there for 20 seconds. I'm talking about Mitch Marner gets put on intentionally the first power play unit for Team Canada.
I'm gonna leaf it. I think that they've got their units kind of picked, and this is a short tournament, man. This is gonna come and go quickly, and I just don't see a scenario where the first unit's doing so bad they're like, we got to yank Reinhardt off of this thing and replace it. Maybe you have a tough loss against Sweden, and all of a sudden they're scrambling a little bit, I guess. But I just think with the personnel that's on the first unit, and Cooper believes in them, and he doesn't. I don't think he's going to be the guy to say you're off. Like, it's not that way. I just don't believe it. So I don't see a situation where he gets where someone gets removed in order to put Mitch in.
I'm going to
Their
leave it
power
as
play's
well.
fucking garbage. Like, why would they put Mitch in? He's not this golden boy of power plays. Their power play's terrible all year. And last year it lost him the playoffs. Like, why him?
I agree. Well, I told you this is stupid. I mean, also, here's the first power play, Rosie. Tell me which one of these guys comes off. Ready? Sidney Crosby, Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar, Connor McDavid, Sam Reinhart.
Yeah,
I mean, there's one
exactly.
guy possibly, but like Sam Reinhart. But
I know. I just don't see a situation where Reinhardt's just not doing his job and not pulling the weight, and things are going terribly on that unit, and we need
yeah,
to put Mitch Marner in, and it's going to be a story throughout Canada, and Reinhardt's got to answer the questions to the media, and Cooper's got to explain himself. I just don't think it's happening.
I don't think so either. Okay, there was dumb question number one. Number two. Two Maple Leafs, two Maple Leafs will finish in the top 5 in tournament scoring. So let's say points total at the end of the tournament. Two Maple Leafs will be in the top 5.
Yeah, I would say I would take it if it was one, but two, there's just too many. I mean, just statistically, your averages, your odds, there's too many good players in there to say, yeah, two are gonna. Again, I'm questioning what um, Matthews is going to look like. Marner's kind of relegated to the second line and second unit. And Willie could do things, but he's not surrounded with the same likes of the top two teams in the Americans and Canadians. So I leaf it. There's no reason to take it just statistically that they're going to stand up and have two guys in the top 5 with all that firepower in the tournament. I just don't think it makes any sense to pick it.
Rosie, I will take it. I think William Nylander
Which
shows
two?
up on the international stage. I think he's the big gun in Sweden. I think he's the guy who gets it done. I think he shows up. I mean, in games where they lose or it's tight or whatever, I still feel like it's William Nylander on Sweden who's producing. And the other guy that I will look at and think could be up there, it will be number 34, the guy wearing the C for the US. He's on the first power play unit. And I mean, I look at that unit. You've got Kachuk, Hughes, Matthews, Eichel, and Fox. Whatever way you want to break it down, it's Eichel and Matthews who are going to be the shooters. Hughes and Kachuk are going to be producing there. They're going to be kind of in that high slot bumper position. You're going to have, I mean, everyone in the world knows where Matthew Kachuk's going to be. He's going to be in that front position. But like outside of that, it's going to be Matthews. It's going to be Eichel. And then looking at their lines, Matthews is with Jack Hughes and Jake Gensel. He's the scorer there again. And I think that it's kind of the puck's going to go through him on his line. I think it's going to go through him on the power play. I feel like he's going to have a good shot. So, I mean, I'll put him up there. I feel like he could produce. He's also been generating a lot more assists at NHL play. And when you play with guys who are much more like, I mean, it's hard to say much more talented because you're playing with Marner and Matthew Nyes. But when you're playing in these like skilled lineups with Hughes and Gensel, maybe it just allows him to kind of generate a little bit more, even on the assist side, if the goals aren't there. So I will take it. And I mean, it's also not to like eliminate Mitch and say he couldn't do it either and be around there. I mean, I just look at him. He's on the second power play unit. He is playing with Connor McDavid, which is not really anything to scoff at when you look at the grand scheme of things and how these lines break out.
Yeah, exactly. Anybody in the top, 6 of Canada and US could do it. Could be the guy that's in the top of the tournament. It's going to be interesting to see whose chemistry ignites who likes playing with the other one? How much do they know about each other? Does everyone know Matthews' sweet spot, and does everyone know where so and so likes to dish it? If they've done their homework or if it just clicks, it'll be interesting. And whoever finds that chemistry with the line and is clicking and finding the opportunities, these guys are all skilled enough to finish the job once plays are in place. Again, I think it's going to come down to whoever has chemistry. There'll be one line that stands out in the tournament, I believe, and those will be the guys that are at the top of the mix.
The chat is all over the place. Like these guys are just roasting Leafs players already, and these are Leafs fans, which Rosie gets me to my next take it or leave it. At least one Maple Leaf player will take flack from their country's or like country's fan base for a performance. So one player will get shit on, dunked on online for how they play in a game throughout this tournament.
Yes, that'll definitely happen.
Yeah.
And I think it could be as innocent as where was so and so tonight? He was a ghost. I could see that happening. But when you got McKinnons and Crosbys and all these different guys that could take over McDavid's and be the story, I think one of those players could get lost in the shuffle. Um, maybe Sweden doesn't do as well as people are maybe thinking and kind of is just not really in the mix and just gets kind of blown out by Canada and the States. And everyone's like, oh, I thought Nylander was a needle mover. People would say that stuff. I'm not saying any of this is justified. I'm just saying more likely than not, there'll be some criticism at one of the three Leafs without question.
Yeah, I'm taking it 100%. This one is really easy for me. Everything you just said, I agree with 100%. And then I'm just gonna throw this wrinkle on here before we move on to the next and final one. They play for the Toronto Maple Leafs, which just automatically puts a target on them, whether you like it or not. Like that's how it goes. Leafs fans will dunk on them. And if Leafs fans will dunk on them, you bet your ass that fans of other teams will be dunking on them.
Yeah.
McDavid could finish a game with a hat trick. 2 goals will be on the power play. One was at 5-on-5, and Mitch assisted it. People will look at the box score after and see Mitch had 1 assist, and they'll be like, why didn't this guy get more contribution here tonight and help McDavid more? And it's like, well, all right, let's relax. We'll be okay.
Yeah. Very
Final one
possible.
here, Rosie. Someone we've forgotten about in all of this, and we talked about leading up to the tournament. Yanni Hakanpää will play more than 0.5 games. So he'll play 1 or more games.
Over under a game.
Yeah.
I don't know. They were talking this morning how Finland's team's defense is like worse than your average NHL team itself. So I think they could use him and need him.
Yeah.
But I mean, has he skated at all?
I don't even know.
Like, why would he? I'm gonna say under. I don't think he plays. I think he's there to be a moral support and talk to the guys. But again, I haven't looked into Finland's D-core very much. Again, I'm starting to ramp up with this yesterday and today, and Finland has not really been on the agenda too much. I just, from what we've seen this year, to throw him into that mix, I don't see how it would benefit the player himself.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave it. I don't think this guy plays. I mean, I see a comment in the chat there. Was he not ruled out? I legit have no idea. I have not seen anything about Hakanpää. I'm just looking at this like I've heard all the conversation leading up to it. I was looking at the depth chart there that what you've got for what you've got for this Finland team going into the tournament. And like, I just think it would be hilarious if we get a tweet from like Mark Masters on Finland game day being like Yanni Hakanpää dressing in top 6, practice jersey today. We're going to see Leafs fans being like, what the fuck is going on? That's the one I'm waiting for.
It'd be interesting to see what level of competitiveness against these stacked US and Canadian rosters Finland is in. And we'll see what happens. If it's a success, does Russia get involved in this? Do they get to play at some point in time, or are they relegated forever because of what the government has been doing? We'll see, but I don't know. There's a chance that that they just get railroaded by some of these teams. Like, how do you, if you don't have teams equivalent to the States and Canada, and how in the hell would you have teams equivalent to those rosters to be able to hang with them? It'll be interesting to see. There's lots of things I'm looking to see. Intensity level, I want to see how Finland hangs in there, and I'm looking at Austin Matthews. I would love nothing more than for him to lead the way. And like, he's wearing the C. Like, what are his leadership qualities? What has he won? You look at Crosby and McKinnon and these other guys that have done things and won things. Matthews hasn't won shit, and he's leading that stacked team. Why? I think those are questions that people will ask, and I hope that he runs with it, improves it, and puts a rubber stamp saying, yeah, I was the guy for the job. I stood up in the big game. I got that tying goal. I got that overtime winner. I did X, Y, and Z to help my team, and maybe they win the whole thing. I don't think they're, as much as I want Canada to win, I don't think there'd be too much better for Leafs Nation than for that guy to be on the world stage, be in a leadership position, and dominate. I think it would benefit Austin Matthews as much as anyone else in the entire tournament.
I see a comment here. Trenholm McDonald. Hakanpää leads Finland to gold. Can see the news articles already.
It's
There
a
he
lot.
is.
It's a lot.
Defensive
Some heavy,
stalwart.
some heavy return on that bet, I'm sure.
Yeah, I can imagine. Hakanpää MVP, generational wealth on that one. The Daily Face-Off live crew is hitting the road and going live on location from the Four Nations Face-Off, bringing you exclusive coverage right from the tournament. From February 10th to 20th, they'll be offering live shows every weekday, breaking down the biggest stories, key matchups, and all the action as it unfolds. Subscribe to the Daily Face-Off YouTube channel and follow on all social platforms. Today, I mean, I think it's noon Eastern every day. Those guys are going live out there from the Four Nations, something you definitely want to check out to get all of your Four Nations updates and coverage. So make sure to check that out. But hey, Rosie, I opened the show here today talking about vacations and whether where you'd be heading on vacation. Well, if people are sitting at home right now, you're dealing with the snow like I am with this nonsense that's happening outside my window right now. Maybe a vacation that you would be interested in is the first ever Leafs Nation vacation. It's just around the corner. We're headed to Nashville from Thursday, March 20th to Sunday, March 23rd. In addition to supplying your ticket to the Toronto Nashville game on the Saturday night, we'll be hosting a live podcast for all of you at Love and Exile Winery and Bar in East Nashville. And yes, a winery tour will be a part of the experience as well. We're offering 2 packages, one with flights as well as one without. Hotel rooms are double occupancy. For more information on how to book, head on over to nationgear.ca or check out the link in our bio. Life's too short for ordinary vacations. One final thing here, Rosie, before we get to our best bet and close out the show. I just wanted to get your quick thoughts. I mean, I'm sure you and Nick will talk about it more tomorrow and as the week goes on and stuff as well. But we saw Jared McCann is potentially available here. And I keep seeing all these reports that this is not the end of trades and stuff. And while players are at Four Nations, it doesn't mean trades aren't going to happen. And as you see on the screen there, Jacob Stoller had tweeted out, I'm hearing Jared McCann could be made available before the deadline. McCann is a versatile scoring forward that can kill penalties and play center if needed. The 28-year-old carries a $5 million AAV until the end of the 2026-2027 season. Would make a lot of sense for the NHL Jets. Well, NHL Jets are not the only team that are looking for some center depth right now. The Leafs are one of those teams that is being rumored, confirmed. I don't even know what the hell you want to put it as right now, as looking for centers to come in here and kind of complement what you have with Matthews and Tavares right now. They haven't been linked to Jared McCann, so I'm not trying to put that out there or anything like that. But I see a guy like this, someone who, by the way, was a Leaf, for those who want to go back to a darker period of time where Jared McCann was moved on from in order to protect the likes of Justin Hall and Alex Kerfoot. Rosie, I don't know if you remember that happening as well, but I don't know. Like, I look at a guy like Jared McCann, he's got some term, he's 28 years old. The return going back to Seattle is probably going to be a little expensive, but would this not be a guy that you'd poke around on because he could be here for a couple of years after? Maybe the assets are worthwhile to give up.
Okay. Well, assets as in draft picks or the Mintons and the Cowans, that doesn't free up any cap space. Like, this team's going to be over the cap when Calle Yarncroke gets healthy. So how do you fit $5 million extra dollars onto your roster by giving up draft picks and prospects? It doesn't. I don't know if I'm kind of taking crazy pills here, but with all these rumors and people that that are slated to possibly come to the Toronto Maple Leafs to help them out. I don't get how and why you get them. You move Reeves out and you move David Kampf out. Nobody wants those players, and no one wants to pay them what they're paid. So even if someone did, you're still not opening up $5 million to replace. And if you get rid of your whole fourth line, who's going to play on your fourth line? I just don't get it, man. And I'm spinning my wheels thinking, how does this work? Usually, money in, money out, and you have this valuable player that, and you, I don't see who that guy is. Max Domi doesn't make it work. Nobody wants Max Domi. He hasn't scored in 20 games. Like, how does this work? I'm starting to get annoyed with the rumor mill with Toronto Maple Leafs on people online just saying, why don't we get him? Why don't we get him? How? How do you get him? How do you get the team to let the guy go? Jared McCann's numbers are really good. They have been for a while. For a guy that no one talks about very often, he's putting up a lot of numbers and would fill the role that we need very well. 100% agreed. But how do you get him here? How do you get Seattle to release him? How do you fit him in the salary cap? Who do you give up? And why would they take those players? I don't understand any of it. And I think Tree Living is going to be in a real tough spot to make this team better, as everyone knows what we want to make to be better, and how we get it is like just a completely different story. There's two problems: a salary cap that we're going to be over without adding anybody, and then who wants what we have to offer? We're not offering Matthew Nyes. So, like, who are we going to give up? You don't give up shit to get a $5 million 28-year-old guy that puts up, that has 16 goals right now. Like, doesn't work. No one, it's a very, very tail land we're living in if you think that. So I would love to know how this is going to work to get a kind of a somewhat of a blue chip center, or even, second pairing right-handed defenseman that everyone's always looking for. How? My question's always how. I don't get it. And maybe I'm out to lunch and there's some maneuvering you can do with cap space and moving guys here and there. Okay. But I don't see how. And all this talk about this guy, what about that guy? Who do we want? As if you can just go to the shelf and pick these guys off, the Lautons and the McCanns. How? I don't understand how, man. I don't think anyone ever thinks about the cap when they're talking about this kind of thing.
That's what I like doing shows with you here, Rosie, is I feel like the D Wade LeBron picture where he just throws the alley-oop up and goes like this, and then he lets LeBron come in and slam it down. That's what it is. I throw you these alley-oops and do that. I can't say that any better. I mean, the only other things I would kind of add to what you said, like, because I agree 100%, is, I had a Dylan Cousins conversation the other day, and KPG's bringing it up. Like, I texted you guys while it was going on. People are in the Leafs Nation After Dark chat are like, go and get Dylan Cousins. And I'm like, okay, who do you give up? I had a caller call in and tell me, it's Max Domi you swing the other day. What? That doesn't work. Oh, you have to
conversation.
Also...
No, sorry.
Yeah. Oh, we'll send you Max. Click. Like, thanks for calling. It doesn't happen. Those things don't happen. And one of the problems that we have, and people also need to realize in all parts of this, is you brought up it's not Matthew Nyes we're sending back. Well, yeah, it's not Matthew Nyes we're sending back because we see that guy being a future part of the team, and he's a top 6 player, and we see what he's developing into. And I agree with you 100%, but people also need to remember, like, okay, you're going to get Jared McCann. He's got term. He's good contract value. Like, it's not like you're getting a rental who's coming at the end of the year. Maybe the call back from Seattle is, there's a guy that's playing really well right now, and he wears number 74, and his name's Bobby McMann. We want that. Are you willing to part ways with Bobby McMann, and he goes to Seattle and gets an extension? Are you willing to part ways with Minton and these things, and like these bigger pieces, bigger picture pieces? And then on top of that, with what Rosie said, find ways to clear cap, because the conversation doesn't just go, oh, he's $5 million, so we need to get rid of $5 million. Oh, there's David Kampf, and there's Calle Yarncroke, and there's Ryan Reeves, and we can get rid of them. That's not what happens. That's not the reality, because all the way around it, it just doesn't make sense. Why the fuck would Seattle want those pieces coming back? That's not what they're looking to do when they trade Jared McCann, who they've got on a good deal, by the way. That's not what they're looking for in return. It just doesn't break out that way. Yes, that's a guy I would like. That's a guy I would look for to add to Toronto. Does it make sense? Can you move these pieces? And then on top of that, can you remove the emotional aspect as a Leafs fan and be willing to move on from some pieces in order to make the team better here now, depending on what you see the window being? Because maybe Fraser Minton is good for your window in 3 years, and maybe they don't think they should be waiting 3 years. And maybe that's a piece you have to move on. And I'm not saying specifically to Jared McCann, but in other deals, maybe that's a piece you have to get rid of for like Scott Lawton, who you think could help you win now and next year and the year after that. Whereas you don't think Fraser Minton is ready to step into that role within the next couple of years, if that makes sense.
And a guy like Bobby McMahon, there's a guy that's playing above his contract. It's a phenomenal signing by Tree Living. You absolutely need those guys if you're
Correct.
going to invest so much money in Nylander and Matthews and potentially Marner and this year Tavares. Like, it's the same story. It's been constructed, this team, so you have all your eggs in these high-end players' basket, and then you don't have a whole lot to go around otherwise. So you can't just start adding Cousins and all these guys because there's no room to go around. You need to get guys like Bobby McMahon who are playing above their salary, which is hard to do. So when you finally find one of those guys, which is next to impossible to do, you're going to trade him. Not to mention, when you need to trade guys to open up cap space, you're going to trade up a guy that doesn't even have a big cap hit and is making a huge difference on your team. No, it's not the answer. I really don't think it is. I think the more we spin around about this thing, the answer is the guys that get paid the money need to do the friggin' job. Plain and simple. They do. Yes,
Yep.
Domi needs to step it up a considerable amount. Yeah, certain players need to be more effective, but it comes down to the big boys. Like, you have to have your 2-1 games in the playoffs. You have to score that overtime winning goal. You have to tie it up late. You have to score the first goal. You have to start on time. You're paid to do that. The team's constructed around you to do that. There's no one else that's going to come in from the outside that's going to complete this team and save the day. There's no cap space because we've given it to these studs. So you got to go be studs.
I agree 100%. That's one of the things that pisses me off every year when we get to the playoffs and when we move through them is like, okay, you want to talk about depth, guys having to score and stuff. Why don't the big boys? Like, it's time for them to get some contributions in here. I think this is another year where you probably look to kind of fill out and complete your bottom six. Maybe you find a way to move Domi to your fourth line and you get an upgrade on him on the third line. And that's kind of how you look to build this. It's cheaper pieces, guys with less of a cap hit, less having to do gymnastics and stuff. This probably is not the deadline that you go and do some big game hunting, in my opinion. I think if you're going to go and do that and go find those guys and make those trades and those signings and stuff, it happens in the summer. Because on top, like, everyone keeps saying to me, oh, well, the cap goes up so much next year. Well, you know when it doesn't, Rosie? At the trade deadline. We still have to get through the rest of this season. There's a ways to go till we get there. So I think that's an important conversation to have as we kind of look at all these names that are coming up. Is like, that would be great. That guy would look awesome here. How? It's not like it's impossible, but you got to move from pieces, and maybe they don't have those pieces to move from right now. So I think it's interesting. I think he's a really good player. Would love to see him here in Toronto. I think he would make the team better. Don't know how you kind of swing that, especially during this season. Maybe it's something you push for down the road. And a super chat here from KPG: Leaf ownership / management doesn't have the guts to move real assets to get critical pieces like Florida, Vegas did, or move on from guys like Tampa. I mean, those teams, we've seen them do some ruthless things. I don't know if it's MLSE. I don't know if it's the president here. I don't know what it is that's leading us down this path. But yeah, there does seem to be a fondness over the players that you have here right now, and that's why you've seen Matthews, Riley, Tavares, Marner, Nylander stick together despite lack of success in the playoffs year after year after year. So I don't know if it's lack of guts, but they've certainly held by these guys.
It's kind of an anomaly. They do so well in the regular season, and you look at their numbers and you say, how on earth could you walk from this player? But everyone who follows the Leafs knows it's this anomaly. Well, yeah, they're really good, but they're not in the playoffs. Yeah, they're really
Yeah.
good. Why don't we win? And you could say, after 8-9 years, people are screaming at the top of their lungs. It's because the team is built too top heavy, and that's not conducive to winning the playoffs. You have to have more depth. Time will tell if that's correct or not. But yeah, they certainly have trouble walking away from these guys. And I understand why they do. They're really good players and they put up a lot of points and numbers. And Mitch Marner has been a story all year for positive reasons. Are you going to win this year? Like, I don't even think about next year with the salary cap and whatnot. It's like you got a pretty damn good team here, top 5 in the NHL. You got some goaltending. Your D looks better. Are you going to make a run or not? And time will tell. That's why we watch.
Insider in the chat, Robert Smith. I texted Marchand last night. He says he'll play for Toronto. Nice. Well, there you go. Sort that one out for us. Rosie, it's time for the last call, brought to you by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION, NATION, all caps today. I don't know about you. I am heavily financially involved in the Four Nations tournament.
In what team, Zach?
Some Sweden stuff all the way around. I've got some Sweden to win, and it's not that I think they're going to win. It's just I look at plus 450 in a small tournament like this where, like, have you looked at the construction of the tournament, by the way? You play 3 round robin games, and the top 2 teams play in the final.
That's wild, eh?
Like, that's it. So I'm like, okay, at plus 450, like if Sweden beats the US once, and they go 2-1 in the tournament, they could very easily be in this finals. Like if the US goes 2-1, maybe they go head to head and then they get ahead of them. Like all these kind of things could break out where something weird could happen. And then all of a sudden we're looking and going, oh, wow, it's Sweden and Canada in the finals, Sweden and US or something like that. So yeah, Sweden, I've got some stuff on them. I've got a lot on William Nylander, top point scorer in the tournament, top goal scorer in the tournament, top point scorer on Sweden, top goal scorer on Sweden. So I've got a bunch of that in there.
Hey.
Yeah.
I think we're going to know a lot more by the end of the night on what this thing looks like. I think right now everyone's just kind of like dreamland, wondering what it's going to be like. I don't know either. I just look at the goal scorers on who's going to score for Canada, and usually like Austin Matthews will be sitting there on the Leafs. If you're looking at a Leafs game, he's like minus 160. It's like, why would I pick him there? But every single player is pretty seriously plus money here. And I jumped on McKinnon and McDavid just to start the show. That's my bets tonight. McKinnon, McDavid, one of them scores, you make money just with their plus. I mean, Connor McDavid is plus 180 to score a goal tonight. McKinnon is plus 165 to score a goal. That's crazy. And that's the best. That's the worst value of the entire team. Like someone's going to score tonight. It's crazy. I love it. So jump on that while you can. And we'll know more by the end of the night, I think, on what this thing looks like.
I got 2 for you here, Rosie, on Bet365. One, I'm piggybacking off of you on there. Connor McDavid plus 180. I like that one a lot. The other one, William Nylander, surprise, plus 250 anytime goal. I mean, I think Canada's offense will be unbelievable. I think their defensemen are really good. I'm curious what will happen with the goaltending. Jordan Binnington back there, he lets one squeaker in and he may start swinging his stick around. And then next thing you know, Aiden Hill's in. And it could be a messy situation. Who knows? But William Nylander, anytime goal plus 250 on top of McDavid plus 180. Those are my favorites tonight. That'll do it for us here today on this edition of Leafs Morning Take. Appreciate everyone who watched. If you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button, Leafs Nation 401, right here on YouTube. Hit that like button as well. And by the way, if you're interested in some more content later in the day that has some Leafs stuff in it, talking about Matthews' 4-goal game, talking about playing with players like McDavid, Nylander, Matthews, Marner, Draisaitl, all that kind of stuff, Zach Hyman joins the sheet later today, 3 p.m. Eastern time on the Daily Faceoff YouTube channel. Myself and Jeff Merrick on there. So make sure to check that out as well. Thanks so much to everyone who tuned in here today. Rosie, appreciate you. Appreciate producer Andy behind the scenes who's filled in here for 2 weeks now while Vacation Vic has been away. Shout out to Andy for the unreal job that he's doing behind the scenes. But Rosie, any final thoughts from you here before we wrap this one up and get to game 1 of the Four Nations?
Oh, I'm just excited, man. Thanks for hosting the show. It felt like an extended version of After Dark, and I agree. Thanks to Andy jumping in and everyone filling in the shoes for those lazy plugs that can't grind through a season without an extended vacation. Good thing we're here, buddy. Good thing we're here.
Exactly. That'll do it for us here today. Thanks so much to everyone who watched. Is the show back tomorrow? I actually have no idea.
It is. Yeah. Nick's back tomorrow. We'll be there. Carter Hutton will be there. I'll be back on Friday. So it should be regular viewing as usual, what people are used to after today.
There you go. Thanks for watching here today. Hit that like button, subscribe on your way out. See everyone back here tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Eastern time for another edition of Leafs Morning Take. Until then, enjoy your days. Enjoy the Four Nations.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.